So success has been largely measured by quantitative terms in some form or a goal. Why do we become unhappy? Being realistic in your setting of expectations. But the minute it becomes overpowering that if I don't get it, I am useless. If I don't get it, I'm going to get angry with you. You must have something that I don't have. I must want it. You have something I don't want, I don't have a problem.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Lalith Dhanush Show. Today I have with me a guest who's been on my show previously, and this person is a professor from IIM Bangalore. His name is Ramesh Venkateswaran and he's the author of this amazing book called Happiness Trails. In this episode, we will be discussing about all the nuances about happiness and how you as an individual and a youngster can develop happiness instantly. Watch the entire episode, let me know what you feel about it in the comment section below, and don't forget to hit the subscribe button.
Where I want to give, I will give. And I will tell you, no. So what I tell people is, get youngsters. So many of my friends bought 20 book copies, 30 copies. A couple of companies bought 100 copies and send it. And I tell them shamelessly, please do that because I want this money to go to the NGO that I run.
I mean, why do you want to... what was the reason behind the NGO thing?
Oh, that's history, 31 years ago.
Yeah, but why do you want to put all the money that you wrote for this book into the NGO?
I think because the NGO has given me a lot.
Like, for example?
It's made me a better person. It's made me understand sensitivity to people, empathy, reaching out to people who are in trouble and therefore I think I have grown as an individual. And all of us as volunteers have grown because we learn to be non-judgmental. We learn to accept people as they are with respect. So I said, this has given me so much, and the book actually has come out because of that sensitivity, and I don't need the money.
So tell me, when you're talking about a sensitive moment, what was that one sensitive moment that kind of really shook you to be this person who, you're also a teacher, so it comes to you automatically, to be a giver. So what are these sensitive moments in life that actually pushed you to be who you are as a person?
It's very tough to give a sensitive moment. In my book, I have given one when I was in school and college, when I saw my father, my son who was 8 years old taught me what sensitivity was.
Like
Well, let me give you my father. I mean, these are things that are still in my memory. I must have been just gone into college in those days. It was a big, bread was a shortage. And I would see my father, who was the boss of a show there, he would every day carry a loaf of bread to office. I said, why are you doing this? And he said, I'm going to give it to this gentleman who is a clerk in his office. And I said, why would you do that? I mean, And he says, this clerk is single. He's an oldish person. He's alone, a Parsi gentleman. He's suffering from cancer and he has nobody. And this is the least I can do for him to make his life better. And I think that made a huge impact on me. So that is one. The second one was when my son taught me, I think it's in the book also, that he was all of 8 years old, carrying 3 buses and going into town. And one day he came late. And we didn't know where he was. There was no mobile, nothing, where to catch him, how to find him. Anyway, to cut a long story short, he slowly comes in 1 hour later.
Okay.
And we shouted at him and he said, how can you be? You must have gone here. So he says, no, when I was shifting a bus and I was to get the next bus, there's a man who came to me and said, I haven't eaten for 2 days. I'm hungry. And he says, this is the bus fare I had those days. I'm talking about 1990. And he was in the 6th standard maybe. He said, I had this bus fare and I could have given him the bus fare, but what I said was, if I give him the money, I don't know what he'll do with it. So I took him to a restaurant, hotel, gave him what he wanted to eat, and then I had to walk. So these are all lessons you learn, and I think after that Vishwas has made it better.
Yes. Sir, and I've also understood that in my own journey for the last few years, I've always had a sense of good feeling. I feel happy, especially when I get to contribute to other people. And I know for a fact there is a direct relationship in this through science or through connection, human connection. Do you also think that this could be one of the ways for this kind of depressed world we are in? do you think it's one of the easiest ways to actually go serve another and just feel good about it? What's your thought on that?
You know, Dhanush, that's a tough question to answer, because when you use the word depressed, then there are so many connotations of depressed. If you're clinically depressed, if you're medically depressed, anything you do is not going to help.
Okay, let's say you're helping the needy, somebody who's in need, not the depressed. I think I used the wrong phrase.
No, you said if I am depressed, if I reach out to people, I will feel good. That's what I understood.
Yes.
But if I am depressed, we need to understand the reasons for my depression. And I'm not so sure. So I don't think doing something good for others can make you feel better if you're not feeling good yourself. And I think you need to feel good to want to do good for others.
I think that's a very true.
And that's my. So I think I've used this quote somewhere, or I've heard this. You can't do good if you don't feel good.
Yeah, I mean, you can only pour when your cup is full.
Exactly, absolutely.
Yes. So now, speaking of this, let's say before you got into work, what would be that one happiest moment of your life in your early 20s? Early 20s, if you had, because I feel happiness has a different definition at each phase of life. So what was your definition when you go back in time?
See, again, I think in the book we talk about, I'm now I have learned 40 years later that what we experience is more momentary pleasure, joy, rather than true happiness. But yeah, they were happy moments at that point of time. Happiness is when I got I still remember at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, my father telling me, 1968, you got the IIT admission. I said, you're joking. I said, I don't believe it. He says, this is true. And I said, wow, I mean, I've got an IIT, and I couldn't believe. So maybe there was a momentary happiness. Happiness is when I won a state title in badminton. And I said, great, I did my engineering, I've also won a badminton. I'm not a complete nerd. I can do both. That's happiness. Happiness is when you see your son born and you say, wow, you are overawed by the magnanimity of this event, of something happening which is beyond reason.
Can we jump into that, sir? Tell me a little bit about that moment, because I think what changed? What was like? What did you recognize within you that was changing while you experienced your son being born?
While I experienced?
Yes.
Which one? Any of these?
No, I'm saying, what was the feeling that you had? Can you put that into words as to what was the transformation from who you were to who you changed to be? So, because of your son?
Yeah. So I think what happens is the transformation happens gradually. There is no discrete transformation.
Okay.
I think it's a series of, and I think 2-3 things happen. One is you learn from somebody. You yourself are transforming because your role is transforming. From a bachelor to a married person, your perspective of life changes. You start working, your perspective of life changes. You're interacting with people, your perspective of life changes. So I think at each stage, in some form or the other, now that you ask this question, I think the important thing maybe I have seen in myself in retrospect is at each stage, I think we must go inside and introspect. And take stock, what I call personal stock taking.
Nice.
Then you say, where am I headed? Okay, what did I learn? That was interesting. This is nice. So I think this is what really has been a good part of the journey in many ways.
I'm sure, and I feel in that journey, there are a lot of myths that get busted. You realize there is a version of truth that that's evolving, and one of those things is, I'm sure we were just discussing it off stage as well, that success does not equal happiness, right? And that's something predominantly you've mentioned in your book, but somehow people think it's two sides of the same coin. But in your book, you've clearly mentioned that it's not. Why do you say so when the rest of the world, believes that it's on the same coin?
Dhanush, we are looking at it now so evidently. You are looking at so many people, quote unquote, success, but who suddenly give up everything and say, I don't know what I'm doing in this. So success has been largely measured by quantitative terms in some form or a goal to be achieved. Let's put it that way. Whereas happiness, I think, is more intrinsic to you. intrinsic to you and to a process. It's about being comfortable with yourself, at peace with yourself, in harmony with people around you. And that's what happiness is. So we have always assumed that if I get this, I will get this. If I get this goal, I will be at peace with myself. I will be happy. But now we are seeing this. I mean, one of the great classic examples we can see is I follow tennis a little closely.
Okay.
And for youngsters, very current, I don't want to go back to years ago. Let's look at somebody like Naomi Osaka.
Yeah.
I mean, at the prime of her thing, she's not happy. But is she successful? I think from tennis standards, she's successful. Our Ashley Barty, who just quit at 23 years old, a 24 years old Australian tennis player, just quit, and she says, no, I don't think this is what I'm looking for. So, but by any definition, they're successful.
Correct.
So I don't know, but if you ask her, she will say, I'm not successful because I'm not happy. And therefore, I think they have defined their lives as happy. So this is what I said. We believe success equal to happiness. I have now rejigged it and said happiness equal to success. And I think these are two examples which come to my mind very immediately. I'm sure there are hundreds of others.
And I like the part where you spoke about success is super momentary, because once you climb that pinnacle, you see another bigger pinnacle right in front of you, and then and the journey is from a pinnacle to pinnacle. But now, do we also then say success is a never-ending loop? What do you think?
Yeah. So this is what I would rephrase that a little bit. It's not that I see another pinnacle. This pinnacle has become irrelevant. I have got into IIT. That was my metric of success, or IIM, or Xavier's, or Stephens, whatever the college is. I keep saying IIT, but anyway. But the minute I have got in, it's irrelevant. I have now to worry about my next one. How do I get out? And now when I want to get out, it's not good enough for me to get out. I have to get out better than you.
Yeah, better package. And
By whatever definition we may have. So the point I'm making is, therefore, when I'm in the 12th standard, success was defined by 99%. The minute I've got 99, it doesn't guarantee me anything. I'm again stressed out.
Yeah.
So if you ask me, these metrics of success are only adding to stress, because that metric I had, that goal I had, saying that this will take me somewhere. But I realize it actually doesn't take me anywhere. It at best opens a few more doors to me.
Yes.
So I think this is the world we are living in today. And that's the challenge that's why I say, why do I want to get into these colleges? Why do I want this job? Because at the very fundamental level, I'm hoping that all this will make me happy. So if you really look at it, our fundamental goal is to be happy, and we believe success will lead to happiness.
Yeah.
But we are seeing that there are many successful people who are not happy.
Yeah, and we see things like suicides, and we see such harsh realities. And speaking of harsh realities and suicides and things which are crazy, I feel are also happening at a very large scale with the younger generation today. So, and you also spoke about what 97% would mean to you while you were in 12th standard. So tell me, sir, if I take you back to your 12th standard day, would you were you confident that you'd be this person at 64, 65, whatever your time right now is? Would you picture the same person sitting right now and talking to me?
Not a hope in hell.
Why?
No way, because you had no idea. See, I think, Dhanush, Lalith, we are overdoing this business of success. Forget about me. I was looking yesterday at Netflix on Jeff Bezos. I read a lot about these people. Whether you talk about, I'm a Steve Jobs fan, but Bill Gates, Jeff Bezos, Elon Musk, XYZ. They didn't know they're going to be $1 trillion company. They didn't know they're going to be $100 billion individual. You have no idea what's going to happen in the future. So therefore, you only know I am going to be this. And this is the challenge, the difference between today's generation, in my view. Today, everybody wants to start and become a unicorn in 2 years. It has taken these people 20 years. You look at Bezos, I was looking at him, you look at Bill Gates, all close to bankruptcy, all not knowing. Read Phil Knight of Nike. You read their biographies. They don't know. All they know is, at this moment I have to do this. And they have that passion, the fire, the commitment, the belief, whatever you want to call it, jargon, which is nice to use. So I really do not know if any of us knew we are going to be this 20 years from today, 30 years from there. 1 month ago, Adani was somewhere. No, seriously. So all these guys who do these predictions, I don't have any faith in any of that. How do you know? One COVID has changed the world.
Yes.
A Zoom has become a multi-billionaire and the hundreds of companies have closed down. Did we know this in January 2020?
No.
We didn't know it.
Now, happiness could be misunderstood in many ways. It could also be interpreted in many ways. And a lot of times, apart from success, happiness is also misunderstood as pleasure, right? What do you think about it? And where do you think the trick is in terms of differentiating between the two?
Okay, I think this is something I have learned more while writing the book. I might have known it at an intuitive level, but it's certainly clarified with me. Happiness and pleasure, I think what we attribute as happiness is largely what you might call pleasure, joy, satisfaction. I am happy when I got 99%. But the next day I'm unhappy because I don't want to know I didn't get the next thing I wanted, an entrance. I'm happy when I got this, but I'm unhappy because he got something else which was better than this. So you see, this so-called happiness becomes very relative in multiple ways. So I think what we are referring to and what I've understood is most of the times we are referring to what you might call ephemeral, transient, satisfaction, joy, pleasure. So to answer your question, these are factors which are triggered by external events.
Wow. Nice.
Happiness is something that is triggered by an internal drive.
Right.
So if I were to distinguish between the two things, I would probably look at these two. That which comes from within, that you decide in many ways, or you get comfortable with, is happiness. Pleasure, etc., is something else. I have a pleasure eating a rava dosa. I have a pleasure eating a hamburger. I'm happy when I'm sitting in Europe and things like that. Okay, I'm happy. That's what I would look at.
Interesting.
External and internal, if I were to, my professorial thing coming in.
Sir, now I want to ask you this question from a perspective of a student. Now, because you said professor, I'm going to go straight to the student face and ask what some of my students also would ask me. Do you think there are secrets or mechanisms or certain ways that we could actually look for long-lasting happiness? And I'm clearly asking you for a prescription.
Yeah.
Because I think prescriptions work with the world today.
Yeah, so I think I have to answer this again in two parts. Again, if I look back to my life and look at young, see, there is a certain process we all go through, and therefore to wish that away is very difficult. I cannot expect a 15-year-old, an 18-year-old, 20-year-old to think like a 50-year-old. Correct. Or to behave like a 50-year-old, and it's not good.
Correct.
But having said that, there are certain things I think the 20-year-old needs to keep in mind so that the path to reaching 50 is reasonably good. And generations have changed, times have changed, everything has changed. So if I were to look at a prescription, I think the first thing is, why do we become unhappy? Ask ourselves that question. Why do we be unhappy? And I think, again, I'm giving it at a very basic level. It's not a philosophy. It's not something metaphysical or anything. I would think we become, and I'm taking this from my service, customer service program actually. We become unhappy because of one simple reason: expectations and achievement. There is only one reason why we become, and this is in customer service. Why do customers get dissatisfied? Customers expect something, they get a service which is here. The gap between these two decides on the level of happiness or unhappiness. So if I were to take that model of management and take it to the individual, why am I unhappy? I'm unhappy because I didn't get what I wanted. Now the question is, so I would recommend to your young audience, the next question is, what did I want? The third, which is the most important question, is, why did I want it? Why is it so important that I should get into this college? Because my father is pressurizing me, because my neighbor got in. So next thing what happens is, Expectations, the second part of happiness for me is, one is expectations and these interact. The second part is envy. I want this. So the problem, Lalith, is I think today many of our metrics of success are not determined by us. It's determined by the outside world.
Yeah.
The family, social pressures, what I think I want to be, and so on and so forth.
So you're saying if we can get out envy and if we can get out of expectations, this entire chain and loop is where we can actually find eternal happiness.
Again,
Long-lasting happiness.
These are dicey words that you're using. I don't think we can ever get out of expectations in envy.
Yeah.
Because they all have a role to play. I need to aspire.
But understanding the nature of what happens to you while that expectations is not met is the key.
And therefore being three things. One is being realistic in your setting of expectations. You know, this is where if you remember, or if you look at my book, again we say stress is bad. There's nothing called stress is bad. There is a positive stress, there is a negative stress. It's the positive stress that makes you perform. But when that positive stress becomes too stressful, it becomes distress. So you have eustress and distress. In the same way, I would think we should be looking at, there is a level of expectation we must have. I must aspire. But the minute it becomes overpowering that if I don't get it, I am useless. If I don't get it, I'm going to get angry with you. So there is a very classic, again, there's a very classic thing about when does envy become counterproductive? When do you envy somebody? Or when does it become counterproductive? You must have something that I don't have. So I'm coming to your next question that you asked. You must have something that I don't have. I must want it. You have something I don't want, I don't have envy, I don't have a problem. So I must want it. And the third is the most important thing. My not having it makes me unhappy. And you're having it. So this is a classic case. So to answer your question of the youngsters you talked about, I don't envy Ambani having a helicopter. I don't envy somebody else, Bill Gates, having a private plane. But when my classmate who studied with me has that Mercedes or that Audi or that house, which I don't have, and I didn't think he was good enough, that causing me pain. So I think we need to put this in that kind of perspective. And today, for the younger generation, I think this is a huge challenge.
How do we get this perspective, sir? Is there a practice? Is there something that we have to read? Is there people that we have to meet in terms of mentors? Because today, these kids are also looking for quick fixes, right? Quick fixes, and at least I believe more than quick fixes, I could say quick validation. So if there is validation, then they can root themselves for a longer term gain. So how do you think we can show them that you could somehow acquire all of these things?
I think it starts at home, to be honest with you. The biggest influencers are our parents. What happens inside a family is what determines who we are. If my father is going to put pressure on me to be an engineer, there's nothing much you can do. There's no point, and this is why, that is why counseling has helped me. I don't pass judgment to say, how does it matter if you're an engineer? No point in my telling a young guy, how does it matter if you're not an engineer? When my father says, if you're not an engineer, you're useless. It's important for me what my father thinks of me. And then I go through a whole lot of emotions. I'm bringing my counseling into it. I can have a feeling of guilt, I can have a shame, I can have anger, I can have fear. I'm going through all of that, and this is what is leading to this stressful society that we are living in. So I think we need a lot more of workshops, discussions, platforms, forums. Start for parents. See, parents, you can't blame them. They have their aspirations.
Correct.
They have worked their way up. They have a responsibility towards son. So when my son was a teenager, I would tell him something, and like all good father and son relationships, he would get upset, he would get angry. I said, listen, I finally had to tell him, I said, I have a situation, I'm a father. You are a teenager, and I know what I say may not appeal to you, but at age 35, I don't want you to come back and say, why didn't you tell me all these things? You knew I didn't know it. So I said, I have a responsibility as a father. You have a choice as a son. My responsibility is to tell you, your choice is to listen or let it go from one ear to another. And so we had an excellent equation at one level that I would tell him if he thought it. But today, 20 years later, he tells me, Pa, I remember what you told me. I said, I've done my bit. So I think all of these have to work.
That's nice. Sir, so it starts at home. Sometimes it could start outside your house as well. If your home is a place where it's not very, it's not conducive enough and it's kind of toxic sometimes, then you'll have to find it outside. And I usually find this way in terms of mentors. You could look up to people that you've never met and say, hey, what is his story? Can I read a book? Can I understand what was his mindset and how can I change my own core values and principles like this person did? So when I was reading your book, I also realized because you're in IIM and you have a plethora of experiences across all fields, you've also met a lot of successful people by societal standards. And one person I could clearly see on your book was Nandan Lakhani, sir. So everybody knows who he is, but I want to know how is he as a person, and if I had to throw a question to him in terms of happiness and for how much you know him, how do you think somebody at his stature could manage happiness and manage the distresses of life, or how do you think he could get through it?
Well, to be honest, I hope Nandan doesn't hear this. I first of all don't know whether he's happy or not. Okay, you see, there are many people, and this is what counseling has helped me understand. Counseling, I've dealt with people who would be the envy of the world outside. And you see them going through a whole lot of issues. This is where I've got balance in my life. You thank God every morning or evening, saying that thank God you've given me some sanity. So anyway, that's a more lighter side. But what do I see him as? I see him as an excellent example of some very simple things. I think he's an extremely low profile, underplayed person. I've seen him very, very calm, very good. But I have admired one quality of his, which I still admire, and I have that quality in many ways, but I'm surprised that he has this quality, and he's had it for the 35 years I know him. You send him a message, you will get a reply within minutes. And I think that has been the single largest takeaway for me, that you could be the chairman of Infosys, you could be a big shot, but he has time for people. And I think that's a quality I would ask anybody to. So, and therefore I have very little empathy for people who said I'm busy. I don't understand it. He's remarkable in that.
And I also saw a few other people comment on the same about your book, and they were telling how, such great things. So also tell me, who are the other people you've met around the same stature, and what do you think would be their, secrets to success and to happiness, or whatever little you know of them? Because I feel a lot of this insight that we're talking about today, sir, is very aspirational. Because you ask any kid, they'll say, I want to be like you said, unicorn founder, I want to have $1 million company. But do you have what it takes to really be that? Or maybe can you metamorphosize into that by having the right kind of mindset? So I feel I'm able to dissect that glimpse or that path for them somehow by, you sharing it.
See, first of all, I think having such objectives itself, in my view, is unrealistic.
Yeah? Why?
Why? Because you get into a business because you like that business, not to make it $1 million business.
Yeah.
See, you don't know whether it's going to be $1 billion or it's going to crash.
Yeah.
The truth is 4 to 5% of any idea succeed.
Yeah.
95% will still fail.
Yeah.
And if you look at any of these guys who are big today, they never started with that. Read books of them. Every single story will tell you they just went in because they had a passion, the fire in the belly. So if I were to look at what I might have learned from people,
and give me the names as well, that would be great.
It's so tough, it's so difficult. It's from books I've read, it's from people I've interacted with.
Okay, 2 people that you've met.
Other 99 people will be very. I don't want to get them off. It's very embarrassing. But I can name a lot of people. But see, 2, 3 things I've seen. I think one is humility. Even at the biggest level, I find they are humble. Now, what does humility mean? It's a nice word to use, and so on. Humility for me, again, leads. So whenever I do training, I always say, I don't understand this word humility. Tell me, how would you operate? How do you say a person is humble? So for me, humility is a guy listens to somebody. irrespective of your stature, irrespective of your rank and so on. Somebody says, I want to talk to you, you listen, you have time. Humility is, I am open to, so I'm a good listener. Humility is, I don't make judgments too fast. I listen and then I don't tell you this is right, wrong, good, bad, and so on and so on. And in many ways, they absorb and learn. So this is one quality I find that most of these people, I'm amazed. And when I hear about what they do, I'm just amazed that I said, my God, I would never have believed you're like this. You know? The second quality, at least, forget about all the others, the second quality, I'm not even talking about integrity and all that. The second important quality is putting your heart into what you do. Do not settle for anything but 100% output from you. I'm sure there are, you're trying to make me put leadership in 90 seconds, which is impossible. But apart from all the other things, integrity, humility is about respect for others. Humility is about listening. Humility is about learning. Humility is about openness. And
So give me two people who have these traits. Like, I want to know names. Can you pull off a couple of names?
Oh God, I don't know how to give you names. Almost every single person who has written in my book will have those qualities.
Yeah?
Outstanding people.
Okay.
Every single person is an outstanding person.
Okay.
I've seen it and maybe that's why I asked them to write for me.
Nice.
Maybe I admired that.
No, fair enough, sir. So now I also feel there's another big problem that I face myself, sometimes, to put things into perspective, I've understood that these zooming in and zooming out mechanisms actually help me understand life much better. Because right now, a lot of kids feel things like modern day kids feel entitled towards life and opportunities and success. But I also think that's a problem of the plenty. Because there's so many options available. What do you want to eat? I don't want to eat anything because there are so many things. So how do you view this problem of plenty? Because I clearly know that you're not coming from a generation of plenty, right? What do you think is the problem? How do you view the problem?
Oh, absolutely. I think it's a very, very genuine problem. It's an extremely valid problem. The reason is, can I ask you a counter question?
Yes.
Why is there a problem why do we have a problem when there is plenty?
Because I think there's no gratitude. There's no value for what you're getting.
Okay.
Second, I also feel you always ask the question of what next. You're on to the next high very quickly.
Okay.
So you might not value it as much as anybody else would, because maybe you would value a masala dosa that you would take 3 roads away or just by walk, and I would value a masala dosa much lesser a city away, and I'm getting it through Swiggy. So I'm just thinking on those.
Okay, I think I'm glad I asked you this question, because I'm going to take a slightly different perspective on this.
Okay.
I don't think those are there. I mean, I would like to give the generation a benefit of doubt. Every generation, the previous generation has said there is, the generation gap has not changed in 100 years, to the best of my knowledge. My parents said this about our generation. I'm sure their parents said it about we say it about ours. I now say it about my grandsons. I don't think that is the problem. I think the problem of plenty also, and this is valid, I'm not saying it's not valid. I think the problem of plenty from a marketing perspective, and I like to transfer, I believe marketing and life are similar, because it's all about relationships and people.
Correct.
I would like to believe that one of the problems of plenty is you're never sure you made the right decision. What you might call in jargon cognitive dissonance. Now, when I have that masala dosa, my worry is, should I have had the rava dosa? That looks tempting. I marry this girl, should I have married that girl? I bought this car, could I have bought that car? So I think this is one of the problems of problem of plenty. And for that to be solved, you asked this very good question. Youngsters need to have clarity about what do they want. And therefore, it doesn't matter to me there are 22. I want this one. I'm good with this. So this is one of the main things. Did I make the right decision? Should I have done something else? And I think that is where the problem of plenty comes, in my view. Not so much about entitled, all that is minor point. When we were there, I knew there was only 2 cars. We took whichever car was there. And for us, it was a huge success. But today, as I told you, I bought Model A, and my son says, you should have bought that model. My friend says, you should have done this. Now the whole life is, did I spend my 20 lakhs properly?
True.
That is, in my view, I think that is something they have to be more careful about.
Yeah. So, sir, while we were just speaking off stage again, there's one word that you used, and I'm very intrigued by it. And you said now you see life in a lot more philosophical terms. What do you mean? What do you mean by you put the lens of your philosophy and see the world through?
Well, I have a separate session for you on that. I would love to do that. And that's not meant for young people, but it's meant for the 65 plus. I'm not talking about that to a lot of people. Maybe hopefully it'll become a book one day, but anyway. When I say philosophical, what I'm saying is that, there are many things that were important at one stage in life which are no longer important today. And I think we need to go through that. We need to go through that. I'm not saying that everybody should be a saint and a sadhu. Then it's dull. It's boring. So, when I went to head the school in Ooty, I told the kids, I said, I want you to be mischievous. It's a part of growing up. I need you not to just be nerds. Mechanical kids who are following this. We are a very regimented boarding school. But yes, I want mischief. I want you guys to do naughty things. I want you to dirty your clothes and get into all sorts of stuff. But don't be violent, don't be abusive, those kinds of things. So what I'm trying to say is, one has gone through all of that. When I talk to my youngsters, I said, I can use more choice words and expletives than you. I can teach you some of this. Been there. I tell my students, believe it or not, I was your age at one time. I'll teach you a few tricks from that side. We've been there, done that. But as you go along, you evolve. And then you start seeing that, at this stage in life, some things are not so important.
Yeah.
What was important 10 years ago is no longer important.
Yes.
That's what I meant. And therefore, there is a more sense of calm in accepting dissonance, or not dissonance, I think not even chaos, but a lack of pattern.
True.
Or something like that. I think that's what I meant by being philosophical.
And I also think it's an arsenal that is available to people's use, especially, and I've seen it in my own life, sir. Like I felt like I wanted a lot of larger perspectives. I wanted to know what the greatest minds would ever think of and what they would refer in terms of doing anything. And one of the best examples is Naval Ravikant, the founder of AngelList. I just love the human being so much because the wealth of knowledge he just gives is amazing. And even him, somebody like him who's in the US, he's a big student of philosophy. And I think that's one genre of books or content that most successful people or extremely successful people consume. And I think philosophy is that lens that you'll either innately develop it or you'll have to acquire it by being around people or doing something. But I definitely know that it gives you a +1 to who you are, and it gives you a larger lens to zoom in and zoom out of the whole game.
Absolutely. And I think now that you mentioned it, if you really look at most of these people who have achieved anything, not in the corporate world, in any world, from social service, they would really have to be great philosophers. Because to manage chaos, to manage contradictions, to manage all the obstacles they pass through, you could not do this if you didn't have a philosophical framework. Nobody reaches the destination on a gold paved road. Nobody. I don't think anybody has done it.
Sure.
And all these guys would have that strength in them, the strength of character, the strength of temperament, which took them there.
Have you ever consumed books and content of philosophy, or have you been a fan of anybody's philosophy?
Not much. To be honest with you, no. I believe my philosophy is good enough. To be honest with you, I find it very difficult to read heavy books.
Yeah.
I like light books, and that's why today's authors are excellent. And I read a lot of management books. I'm now reading about history, civilization, which I didn't read for many years. I find philosophy very difficult to handle.
Yeah.
But I believe I lead a life which is as decent as can be under the circumstances of being on earth. So that's the truth. So I have a couple of friends who give me these books. It's all on my shelf. And I say, listen, I read the first 3 pages. I don't know what he's saying here. I have no idea what he's saying.
Yeah, I'm sure. So, sir, I think on that note, thank you so much. It was a great episode. Like, the few minutes we recorded flew by, and I'm looking forward for the next 4 episodes we're going to shoot on the same series.
Perfect. I'm also looking forward to it. Great fun as always, Lalith.
Thank you, sir. My pleasure.
Thank you. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, sir.
Great.